I saw a very interesting meme in Russian internet this morning that literally said that Mr. Zelensky officially visited Russia as a president of Ukraine for the first time. That's talking about his recent visit to liberated Kherson. What a hilarious meme at such a sad time actually. Hi, my name is Niki. On this channel I do plenty of video updates on what's happening in Russia, and I also do a lot of lifestyle videos from my trips abroad. In today's video we're gonna talk about the recent events in Kherson and also about how does Russian state media portray this very event, so you can understand what kind of propaganda does Russian government feeds to their people. I guess such kind of stuff can explain a lot. I actually made a video about that too, basically showing what Russian government tells to people about this annexation or these referendums, calling that historical events, but anyways. That time the biggest narrative from Russia was that they are coming to those annexed regions forever. They literally said Россия навсегда, which means Russia forever.
Россия здесь навсегда.
Я лично обещал, что Россия навсегда в Херсоне.
Россия вам гарантирует, этот мир наступит. Россия никуда не уйдет.
It was all around the places, such big words, and many people in Russia wondered why would they say this Russia forever in those regions, because surely something might happen. Something that we are observing right now, basically that Russia forever lasted for a bit more than a month, and then a few weeks ago Russia started to move citizens of Kherson from one part of the city to another, basically across the river. And here somebody like me can think that there's not a big deal to actually move people from one side of the city across the river to another side, because the city I'm coming from, I was born in the city of Omsk in Siberia, has plenty of people living on both sides of the river. So without looking at Kherson map, I actually thought that alright, they're moving people from one city to another because it's maybe better position. But these days, after receiving a lot of news from Kherson, I actually took my time to look at the map of Kherson like more carefully, with more attention, and I found out that the entire city is located on one side of the river, and the second side of the river has almost nothing. So moving people from that very habited and very lively side of the city across the river to basically place where nobody lives is a very significant thing. A few days after the citizens of Kherson were moved across the river, Russian troops did the same thing, basically leaving the city of Kherson, just to see Ukrainian forces coming back to Kherson and basically liberating the city, while all people who left in that side of the city basically cheering them and being very happy to see such kind of change. This footage of people cheering Ukrainian troops entering the city spread widely in Russian internet, and the reaction of people was like very interesting. Basically, I saw two big opinions. First of all, I saw a lot of people who live in Russia were very happy to see that Russian army disappeared from Kherson and Ukrainian army came back to that place. People say that they are very touched to see such a reaction of local people from Kherson who meet Ukrainian forces, crying happily and say a lot of thankful words to Ukrainian troops. There were really a lot of comments saying something like, yes, I am living in Russia, but I'm actually really glad that those people are now finally liberated. And second big opinion that was often repeated in the comments under like numerous videos and text posts on Russian-style Reddit. So that second opinion was basically criticizing the decisions of Russian government, and I think such opinion comes from people who actually support the war or special military operations, that's how they call it. And right now, as many times during the last couple of months, they are not really satisfied with the actions of our government. So yeah, I might say that I start to see much more opinions from Russian people who are happy to see how Russian army fails, and also much more opinions from the patriots who are not satisfied with our government's actions. I don't know, maybe it's just my informational and social bubble. You know, the kind of news I watch might be different from the kind of news that most of people in Russia watch, I don't know. But anyways, even if it really is my informational bubble, it's nice to see the progression of Russian people opinion. People start to realize that this war is actually wrong and shouldn't happen at all. Well, let's get to the main part of this video and talk about what does Russian state media tell us about Kherson. And believe me, when something goes not according to the plan, Russian state media try to avoid talking about such kind of thing. I searched news related to Kherson on Russia 1 channel. Apparently this is the most watched channel in Russia right now. Here is the news line I found. First, on November the 9th, our Minister of Defense Mr. Shoigu ordered to regroup troops from Kherson city. 2 days later, they reported that all Russian troops and 115,000 of Kherson citizens left the city. 3 days after that, all of a sudden, they started reporting on how cruel Ukraine is in Kherson, and then shifted to talking about how good Russia to people and even animals of Kherson. I didn't miss a single news report here. That's literally what Russia 1 had to share about Kherson started from November the 9th. Now let's see a bit of the news program just to get the taste of Russian news. This morning, all Russian people of the Kherson region were completely transferred to the left bank of Dnieper River. No casualties among personnel and equipment. Our military helped everyone who wanted to evacuate until the very last moment.
Страшно жить стало при украинской власти.
Мы с Крыма.
Так что, я сам крымчанин из Феодосии.
Residents of Novokakhovka were also recommended to leave the city, and they accepted it with understanding.
Надо, чтобы победа была. Победить надо, ребят. Боевые действия будут, конечно, страшно. Мы будем сидеть в подвалах и все. Это ж можем и погибнуть, это ж без этого не бывает. Это ж война есть война.
So looks like their main rhetoric is based on the idea that they are saving lives of soldiers and also the equipment of Russian army by relocating them from one side of Kherson, basically across the river, which is actually a rational and logical decision, although really difficult decision if talking about reputational damages. You might remember what happened in Liman a few months ago, and that time Russian society, including our government, kinda divided into two different opinions. Basically, some people supported that Russian troops left Liman, and yet a lot of people were really angry about that, including these two guys who got like really big political weight during this year. I expected that this time Kadyrov and Prigozhin, they will disagree and dislike the decision of Russian government to regroup Russian troops once again, although they fully supported this decision. Another thing that I find like really interesting talking about these events, that we actually don't have many news talking about Kherson recently. There are some news about Kherson coming from November the 9th, and then the next piece of news coming about Kherson is November 13th. Somehow there were no words talking about Ukrainian forces taking back that side of Kherson city. Of course, I'm talking about one specific TV channel, one specific state news report, but anyways, I think this shows a good example of this. At the same time, besides official state news, we also have a lot of propaganda channels in Russia, and they are talking a lot of BS about all recent events. And here I want to specifically mention one guy who works for NTV, that is another government-run TV channel. His name is Anton Norkin, and what he says in his TV program is kinda hilarious, but also illustrates the reality of Russian censorship like very well.
Если я поддерживаю это решение.
If I support this decision and say that the Ministry of Defense is doing the right thing by leaving Kherson, then it turns out such words are public calls for violating the territorial integrity of the Russian Federation. In our criminal code, this is Article 280 Part 1, and I specifically checked this morning, that's several years of imprisonment. If I do not support this decision and believe that the Ministry of Defense did the wrong thing by leaving Kherson, these are public actions aimed at discrediting our armed forces. Same Article 280, but Part 3. The duration of imprisonment is approximately the same. I don't want to go to jail. So that guy said that he cannot show any opinion on this topic, and of course that is kinda a joke, but anyways, that illustrates the situation like pretty nicely. Well, the main reason I'm making this series is just to illustrate the power of propaganda, because believe me, there are millions and millions of people who live in Russia and watch only these state news reports, and they believe that it's the only possible truth.
Совсем близко украинские националисты. Украинские нацисты. Цель украинских националистов. Украинские националисты.
They hear that Ukraine is bad and Russia is good, and that Russia is making a smart move by regrouping the troops just before making another smart move. That's all what people hear on Russian TV, and maybe someday the public opinion might be changed, although I wouldn't count on it in the near future. Before saying goodbye, I want to say a few words about one of my newest projects, a Russian club for people who would like to study or improve Russian language. I hosted a Russian-speaking club for my followers completely for free since 2020, but this year I decided to dedicate more time and energy into this tiny project, and I made it a paid community for you. So if there's any of you guys interested in studying and practicing Russian language, just check out the link I put in the description to this video. Thank you so much, спасибо and пока!